Welcome to The Flagship. I'm Amber Schrader, Executive Director of Badgers United. On The Flagship, we are discussing the health of UW-Madison and what it needs to be successful for the people of Wisconsin. Today, we are joined by Carl Gulbrandsen, former Managing Director of WARF, the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation. Prior to his appointments as Managing Director, Carl was WARF's Director of Patents and Licensing. In addition to his work at WARF, Carl is a member of the Wisconsin State Bar and served as a member of the Executive Committee of the Wisconsin Technology Council. Thanks for joining us, Carl.
Glad to be here.
So let's dive in and talk about what you did at WARF before we jump into the meat of this. What is WARF?
So WARF is the granddaddy or grandmother, depending on your point of view, of university technology transfer. It's been around since 1925. It's separate from the university. It's its own not-for-profit organization. It's called a supporting organization, and it supports only the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Purpose of WARF is to promote, encourage, and aid scientific investigation and research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. A lot of things contained in those purposes. It does the patent and licensing for Madison. It invests the licensing proceeds into an endowment that is built over its 90-plus years. From that endowment, it gives a grant to the university, which is anywhere from $60 to $100 million a year, depending on circumstances. It manages the Discovery Building, assists in supporting affiliated organizations that it's created over the years, such as YSL, YSIS, which serves the other campuses of the university system, and Mortgage Institute for Research. And it supports technology commercialization. WARF has a program called Accelerator, which provides funding for technology that is in the nascent technology stage and needs development before some company can license it or start a company with it. It's helped fund D2P at the university, Discovery to Product, Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic at the university, Business and Entrepreneurship Clinic at the university, and WARF Ventures, where WARF actually invests in startup companies. And then it provides a lot of information and assistance to folks interested in taking their technology out of the university, commercializing it, and using it to improve lives. That's all it does.
That's all, huh? Just that small little bit of stuff?
Yep.
So when you were there as managing director, what challenges did you face?
I think the biggest challenge was dispelling myths about what WARF was and what it can do and what it should do. A lot of opinions on what it should do. WARF has a particular mission, and so the challenge was to make sure that we were always focused on that mission and that what we did improved the university and helped move technology forward. And I think that also a challenge was focusing on and addressing the needs of the stakeholders we have. And with an organization like WARF, there are a lot of stakeholders going from business people to the university itself, faculty, students. So there was a lot of things to do. Keeping focus was sometimes a challenge.
So I think you've kind of alluded to this, but why is it important for people to know about WARF?
Well, WARF is, I think, an important reason why the University of Wisconsin-Madison is such a successful major research institution, in fact, a top research institution globally. WARF provides kind of the pre-government funding money to the university. The money that the university gets from WARF for research is really unrestricted. So they can use it to fund research that is perhaps what we would refer to as a little bit high risk. That is, it's not research that a foundation other than WARF or a government agency would come in and fund because they don't know exactly what the results are going to be. But they get that early data using the money from WARF, and that allows them to leverage that into getting research grants from the university. Also, I think it's important to know that WARF's technology that is patented and licensed and started companies with impacts the entire state from an economic standpoint and from a improvement of life standpoint. Example is cancer research and radiotherapy through tomotherapy. Those types of inventions not only help cancer patients, but they help the community. People have to be hired to run those operations, and they become essentially a profit center for the hospital, but also an important facility within the hospital. Agriculture, high-red cranberry. High-red cranberry was tailored for Wisconsin. Up in northern Wisconsin, that's the best cranberry that they've got going. And it's licensed broadly, low cost, Wisconsin farmers. A lot of technology, beets and so forth that comes out of the university and then is spread around the state. It's been a good relationship over the 90-plus years.
It's quite impressive, the things that WARF has done, that the average citizen probably really doesn't know about.
So one other thing that I should mention, WISIS, which I mentioned before. WISIS was started by WARF to serve the other campuses of the system. So that has a reach that is a statewide reach. And WARF helps provide both funding and service in kind to WISIS on an annual basis. And WISIS has become a great success.
Awesome. We think that's great. You're also on Badger United's board of directors. Can you talk a bit about why you chose to be on this board?
It's a little bit frustrating when you talk to people outside of Dane County and they have a negative view of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, or they don't understand what the University of Wisconsin-Madison does and why it's different than the other universities in the system, why we call it the flagship campus. It's also frustrating when you hear a lot of the negative rhetoric that has been made about the university and people not happy about certain events that occur or certain things that happen at public meetings, or that they don't have enough of the public meetings. Any organization that's as large as the university is going to have some issues that somebody can deal with. But what I really like Badgers United to help do is get people to appreciate what the great value of the university is. And this is something for all of us in Wisconsin to be extremely proud of because we're all invested in it. Our tax dollars, which are actually a small part of the university's budget, but it's our tax dollars, go to the university, educate our kids, and as we'll probably talk about, it's an accessible place. And the University of Wisconsin-Madison is not so costly that kids that otherwise couldn't afford it can't go there. And it's a great environment. It's great for everybody to visit. I think everybody from Wisconsin should at least once a year come down and visit University of Wisconsin-Madison. So that's why I'm at Badgers United.
We're happy to have you. And I think one thing you said that is important to highlight is the tax investment. The state invests about 14% of UW-Madison's budget. It's down from 43% back in the 70s. We did some work on the Badgers United side and found that the average taxpayer spends about $20 a year on UW-Madison. Why do you think that's so misunderstood?
I think that people misunderstand how the tax dollar in Wisconsin is used in the first instance. But again, there's been a lot of negative rhetoric, not all of it true. Every organization can be criticized. But I think it's just, not having enough people talk about the value the university brings to them and being able to appreciate that. But I think the more important thing is that this is our university. It's incredible campus, incredible facilities that has been built up over 150 years. And it's the Wisconsin taxpayer that has done that. So all of us own that live in Wisconsin. This is our university. We ought to be proud of it.
Yeah, what an incredible thing to be proud of. So talk about the Wisconsin idea. What does that mean to the Wisconsin taxpayer?
Well, the Wisconsin idea is that the results of research that occur at the university actually end up helping everyone in the state. So, the ideas of the university are not just ideas that sit within the confines of the university, but they extend out to the borders of the state. And today, they extend globally. But citizens of Wisconsin get first crack at it, and it benefits them, I think, immensely.
Yeah, we agree. I think one way that plays out is in research dollars, right? Mm-hmm. So $1.2 billion of research generates $2.3 billion of economic impact for the state. As I often say, that money is going to be spent somewhere. Let's spend it in Wisconsin. It's federal dollars. Why is this important?
Well, it is a great economic boost for the state. It's probably one of the major economic boosts in our state. It's important because that $1.2 billion, the great majority of that comes from outside the state of Wisconsin. It's not money that's generated in the state. It doesn't come from the state itself. It doesn't come from corporations in the state. Most of this comes from the federal government or foundations that are not in Wisconsin. So we have dollars, research dollars coming in from out of the state, and those research dollars leverage economic development within the state. So they provide jobs, they buy services and products. A lot of them are manufactured in the state or provided in the state. And then they educate our kids, graduate students, and they provide an improvement in all of our lives. So that's why it's important.
It's super important. And I think there's a perception that the money spent by UW-Madison is only a Dane County thing. Do you have a reaction to that?
Well, not at all. The money that comes from these research dollars, again, it provides jobs. Not all these jobs live in Dane County. It purchases services and supplies, come from vendors all over the state. And it provides products that go out of Dane County and serve everybody in the state. So it does have a statewide impact. It's a remarkable thing.
Yeah, we agree. I think we recently saw that UW-Madison has contracts with vendors in all 72 counties. I think that's a little-known fact. Why do research efforts at the university matter to folks? Why should Wisconsinites care?
Well, I think you care, first of all, because it does improve our lives. And secondly, it's something to be proud of. I mean, our university has been incredibly productive. Starting with the first discovery of vitamins, that started at the university, the discovery that vitamin D, that you can increase the vitamin D content of food, the notion that you can have something like warfarin to prevent blood clots and strokes coming from a farmer whose cows were bleeding to death. All of this stuff percolates out into the state and benefits us. And so those research efforts really should matter to all of us because, again, this is our university. All of us own this university. And this university is incredibly productive, and it benefits all of us.
Talk a little bit about how you think research aids talent attraction for our state.
Well, the ideas that are generated by the research, first of all, help start companies in the state. So just that in alone is a very good economic driver. Those companies need employees. When people are coming to the state of Wisconsin, they want to know if there's a future for them. And frankly, university is a future. I used to say that, liken it to Disneyland, and I would say it's not Fantasyland. This is Tomorrowland, and it is. It's generating our hopes and generating our fuel for tomorrow. And it comes out of the university. It takes a lot of work, everybody engaged in the university and in the state, to take those ideas that come just out of the lab and productize them, make them, develop them so that they can be used to go into companies, both companies that are operating in the state already, but then companies that young people want to start and take a bet on. Some of them are very successful.
So do you think that it plays a role in who we attract as students, both undergrad and grad?
Absolutely. I mean, University of Wisconsin-Madison has a terrific reputation, and people come here from all over the world because they want to be exposed to the ideas that are coming out of the university, exposed to the great faculty that the university has. The other interesting thing is that, two comments. One, a lot of people that come here and study and get their degrees, they fall in love with the state. Not just Madison. They fall in love with the northern part of the state, the lakes, the outdoors area, all of the activities that are available to citizens in the state, and they don't want to leave the state. And, the saying goes, when somebody does leave, get their degree at Madison and leave, they spend the rest of their life figuring out how they can get back here. So it's a magnet. And again, I think that's another reason why people should be proud of the university and recognize it. We have great sports teams. That's true too, and we're all proud of that. But we should be equally as proud of the research that goes on and the ideas that come out of the university.
It's funny you say that. I was a student who graduated and couldn't get away from home fast enough, and then quickly realized I needed to make my way back as soon as I could. So I totally agree with that and see where that you're coming from. I think when Wisconsin citizens look at the newspaper and they see the professor salaries published and they compare it to their pay and what they bring home, they just have this common sentiment of professors are overpaid, they're never in class teaching, we got to stop this. How do you respond to that?
Well, I disagree with them. I don't think professors, first of all, are overpaid. I think if you look on a national scale, faculty at Wisconsin are not paid at the level that faculty are paid at other peer institutions. And that's been one of the difficulties in recruiting. But I would say that, people come here not just because of the salary. They come here because of the great talent and the great faculty that are here and of the great environment that has been created over the years. So, as far as straight salary, faculty are not paid more richly than peer institutions or other institutions that are research institutions. But secondly, I don't think people understand completely what faculty do. And, when they're committed faculty, they're there because they want to do research and they want to teach. And some people will criticize them because they may teach only 2 courses, but they're doing a lot of things. They come here to do research. And so when they aren't teaching, they're doing research. In their labs, they have graduate students and postdocs. They're teaching the graduate students and the postdocs how to do that research and how to become successful people in the research careers. When they're not doing that, they're writing for grants. And that brings in the $1.2 billion that the university uses as an economic leverage to help fund this economic engine for the state. So we want them doing research, we want them writing grants, and we want them being successful at obtaining grants, and they are very successful at that.
One thing you talked about I think is important for us to differentiate is who are our peers when you say that compared to our peer market?
Well, I think our research expenditures are probably number 6. So when I think of our peers, I think of schools like University of Michigan, I think of Stanford, I think of Yale, of the Ivies. From a research standpoint, we can stand shoulder to shoulder with any of them. If you look at the graduate schools that we have at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a lot of them are in the top 10. Some of them are in the top 5. Some of them are number 1. And, again, it's something for the citizens in our state to feel really good about and be happy that we've got this kind of flagship institution.
So when you talk about who our peers are, it triggers for me that if we're talking about the Ivies, students going to UW-Madison are certainly getting a great value.
They are. They're getting a great education. They're getting a great education. The statistics that come out of Madison as far as length of time to get degrees has gone down. I think it's now down to 4 years, which is remarkable for undergraduates. Graduate students, when they get done with their degree at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, there's usually a good future for them either in industry or in academics. And some of them, like me, may decide to go to law school. But the university trains you well to think the way you need to think to take advantage of opportunities to come along and to actually end up helping the state, which is what we do.
Awesome. So there are 2 R1 schools in Wisconsin. First of all, can you help us understand what it means to be an R1 school?
So an R1 school is a research university, and we've got University of Wisconsin-Madison, we've got University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And it's very important for both of these institutions to be doing research. I think research for a large institution like University of Milwaukee, which is 25,000 students, 30,000 students, and Madison, which is 48,000 students. Having research there is very important. But when you start comparing Madison and Milwaukee, the breadth and the scope of Madison is just hard to compare to. Madison's got $1.2 billion in research dollars. Milwaukee doesn't compare to that. It doesn't compare in part because Milwaukee hasn't been an R1 school that long. Madison's been an R1 school for decades, for maybe 100 years. And the facility that Madison has, that's been built up over 150 years. Milwaukee just doesn't have that. Maybe someday it will. But right now, Madison is the flagship school. And again, one of the goals is to help Milwaukee and Madison work better together. And I think that they're working on that. And, they should do that. But Madison is unusual in that everything's on one campus. So you've got a medical school there, you've got a vet school there, you've got the College of Agriculture right on that campus. You've got, letters in science, high energy physics. All of those things are located on one campus, business school, law school. It's all there. And that kind of environment is really an incredible environment for ideas to percolate and for great things to happen. And that's what happens at Madison.
So how do students take advantage of this research? What does it mean for an undergrad student when it comes to research?
The environment is just incredible. You rub shoulders with people who, have incredible ideas and who come from all over the world. And so from a cultural standpoint and from an educational standpoint, I don't think it can be beat. And then, there are a lot of undergraduate students that end up working in the labs. And they bring great value to the lab, but they also learn a lot working in that lab. They can decide, whether they want to go into research, or they can say, those ideas, as an undergraduate, they can say those ideas that are coming out of this lab, I can create a company with those ideas. And some of them do. The whole entrepreneurial environment today, it's not just, applications. It starts with basic science. And so undergraduates that get exposed to that, they see it from the time it first becomes a glint in somebody's eye to when it gets to the point where you can start to actually develop a company. That kind of environment is pretty special.
So I think, you've definitely made the case here for research is a good investment. It's great for our state. But what's the reality? What are the reality of the challenges UW-Madison faces in the future, now and into the future?
Well, one of the challenges, of course, is keeping great faculty. And, that kind of gets back to issues of the faculty feeling like the state appreciates them. The negative rhetoric doesn't help. And so Madison has been successful at keeping faculty, but it's always competitive. And if faculty don't get paid sufficiently, they get recruited. There's been periods of time in recent history where it's really a shopping season for other institutions to come to Madison and pick off top faculty. And so that's something that I think we have to always be careful of. We want to keep these faculty here. We want to keep them bringing terrific grants in and coming up with great research. The other challenge is it's just, again, the cost of doing research is an incredible challenge. Now, fortunately, we have a lot of grants, but those grants don't pay for a lot of things. So UW-Madison is fortunate that they've got WARF, and they've got UW Foundation. So these donor dollars help a lot. And we hope the state continues to support Madison well. It's important for the state to provide good, livable salaries to our faculty, but your foundations provide the cream on the cake. And I would say with respect to WARF, the one thing that sometimes people don't understand, including some of our legislators, is the fact that the WARF dollars are really focused on research. So those WARF dollars aren't going to pay salaries. They're going to pay research. And that's important.
So I think you bring up a great point when you talk about faculty retention, in that the stories we're seeing in the news frequently are about the administrative bloat at UW-Madison. The reality is we're near the bottom of the Big Ten for administrative costs. What's your perception on that?
I think that it's a misperception. At Madison, there's not administrative bloat. I think the chancellor and her staff have done a terrific job of trying to keep administration as slim as it can be. They've done things like consolidating courses so that you don't have the same administration for each course. You can have a single administration combining a number of courses. A med school has done that. They've been very careful to make sure that they don't start new programs that would spawn administration. One of the problems with administration and what they refer to as administrative bloat is you have all these non-funded mandates that come from too much regulation that requires the university to do things that really require them to put in place people that, their full-time job is just to crunch these numbers to satisfy either the government or somebody else. And, it costs a lot of money. So one of the things that could help the university a lot is to try to reduce some of the regulation that the university is hampered with.
So talk a little bit about the needs of students in 2019-20 compared to 10 or 20 years ago.
Well, we live in a society where there's a lot of diversity, And there are a lot of social problems that are plaguing society and affecting students. Things like drug use, mental health issues, a lot of pressure on students today. I think just the size of the student body, we're talking about 48,000 students. So you're going to have problems that exist with that, and you've got to deal with it. And we've got a society now where there are threats that occur. I hope that we never have a shooter at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, but people fear about that. All of those things cost money to take precautions to increase security, to address these mental health issues, and you can't ignore it. So it is part of the reality of a large university, and I think the university is doing a good job addressing it, but it costs money, and we can't ignore it.
Yep, agreed. We're on current topics right now. There are 2 different legislative packages being considered in the Capitol to help offset the cost of the tuition freeze. One thaws the freeze, the other funds it. Do you have any perspective on this or any information you'd like to share?
Well, I agree that we ought to get rid of the tuition freeze. And I think that from my standpoint, it's beneficial to the taxpayer to get away from it, because if the university is able to raise dollars through tuition, that means that there's less tax dollars that need to go to the university. So that's a good deal. People then worry about, well, can my child afford to go to the university if they're raising tuition? But we've got the Badger Promise at the university. The chancellor's been very good about raising money to do that. And the commitment from the university is that no one that is admitted to Wisconsin will be prevented from going there because of their economic situation. So raising tuition should not affect children that come from families of, under $60,000 of family income, which is a great deal and is something that should provide comfort to the citizens of Wisconsin, but at the same time, they need to understand that the university needs flexibility to address all the needs that it has, and it can't expect to get those just from tax dollars. So we're at the lowest level of tuition in the Big Ten, I think, something like that. University is a great bargain. People want to go here, and if they can afford to pay for it, they ought to pay for it.
Yeah, we agree. And I think some of the data supports that. 53% of the students that graduate from UW-Madison have zero debt.
Right.
I think that speaks to the access and affordability issue right on there.
Right.
Thanks so much for joining us, Carl. You have great insights and experience. This has been an episode of Badgers United Podcast, The Flagship, where we work with thought leaders in higher education to make sense of the complex policy web that governs our state's largest university. Please follow us on Twitter at Badgers_United and sign up for our mailing list on our website at badgersunited.org. Thanks for joining us.